영어 원서 한 권 끝까지 읽기. 오헬리스 short story The Cup and the Anthem. 경관과 찬송가. On his bench in Madison Square, Sophie moved uneasily when wild geese honk high in the night, and when women without sealskin coats grow kind to their husbands. And when Sophie moves uneasily on his bench in a park, you may know that winter is near at hand. A dead leaf fell in Sophie's lap. That was Jack Frost's card. Jack is kind to the regular denizens of Madison Square and gives fair warning of his annual call. At the corners of 4th Street, he hands his visiting cards to the north wind so that the inhabitants there may make ready. Sophie's mind became cognizant of the fact that the time had come for him to provide against the coming rigor, and therefore he moved uneasily on his bench. His ambitions were not of the highest. In them there were no considerations of Mediterranean cruises. 3 months on the island was what he craved. 3 months of assured board and bed and congenial company, safe from Boreas and blue coats, seemed to Sophie the most desirable thing. For years, the hospitable black whales had been his winter quarters, just as his richer friends in New York had bought their tickets to Palm Beach and the Riviera each winter. Sophie had made his humble arrangements to move into Blackwell prison. And now the time had come. On the previous night, some daily newspapers kept beneath his coat, about his ankles and over his lap, had failed to repulse the cold as he slept on his bench near the sporting fountain in the ancient square. So the island loomed big and timely in Sophie's mind. He scorned the provisions made in the name of charity for the city's dependents. In Sophie's opinion, the law was more benign than philanthropy. There were many charitable institutions, municipal and private, on which he might receive lodging and food accordant with the simple life. But to one of Sophie's proud spirit, the gifts of charity are encumbered. If not in coin, you must pay in humiliation of spirit for every benefit received at the hands of philanthropy. Every bed of charity must have its toll of a bath. Every loaf of bread is compensation of a private and personal inquisition. So it is better to be a guest of the law, which, though conducted by rules, does not meddle unduly with the gentleman's private affairs. Sophie, having decided to go to the island, at once set about accomplishing his desire. There were many easy ways of doing this. The most pleasant way was to dine luxuriously at some expensive restaurant, and then, after declaring insolvency, be handed over quietly and without uproar to a policeman. A kind judge would do the rest. Sophie left his bench and strolled out of the square and across the level sea of asphalt, where Broadway and Fifth Avenue flow together. Up Broadway, he turned and halted at a glittering cafe, where the choicest products of the grape are served. Sophie was confident in his appearance. From the lowest button of his jacket upward, he was shaven, and his coat was decent, and his neat black tie had been presented to him by a lady missionary on Thanksgiving Day. If he could reach a table in a restaurant, unsuspected success would be his. The part of him that would show above the table would raise no doubt in the waiter's mind. A roasted duck, thought Sophie, would be about a thing, with a bottle of Chablis and then camembert, a cup of coffee, and a cigar. $1 for the cigar would be enough. The total would not be so high as to call for any revenge from the cafe management, and yet the meat would leave him filled and happy for the journey to his winter refuge. But as Sophie set foot inside the restaurant door, the head waiter saw his frayed trousers and torn shoes. Strong and ready hands turned him about and conveyed him in silence and haste to the sidewalk. So the roasted duck with a glass of quality wine disappeared from him. Sophie turned off Broadway. It seemed that his route to the coveted island was not to be an Epicurean one. Some other way of entering the island must be thought of. At the corner of 6th Avenue, electric lights and cunningly displayed wares behind plate glass made a shop window conspicuous. Sophie took a cobblestone and threw it through the glass. People came running around the corner, a policeman in the lead. Sophie stood still with his hands in his pockets and smiled when he saw the cop. "Where's the man that done that?" inquired the officer excitedly. "Don't you figure out that I might have had something to do with it?" said Sophie, not without sarcasm, but friendly, as one greets good fortune. The policeman's mind refused to accept Sophie as a suspect. Men who smash windows do not stop there to talk to the cops. They run away as fast as they can. The policeman saw a man halfway down the block running to catch a car. With drawn club, he joined in the pursuit. Sophie, with disgust in his heart, loafed along, twice unsuccessful. On the opposite side of the street was a restaurant. It catered to the people with large appetites but modest purses. Into this place, Sophie took his old shoes and torn trousers without challenge. At the table, he sat and consumed beef steak, pancakes, donuts, and pie. And then to the waiter, he told the fact that the minutest coin and himself were strangers. "Now, get busy and call a cop," said Sophie, "and don't keep a gentleman waiting." "No cop for you, sir," says the waiter, with a voice like butter cakes and an eye like the cherry in a Manhattan cocktail. "Hey, con!" The two waiters pitched Sophie upon his left ear on a coalless pavement. Arrest seemed but a rosy dream. The island seemed very far away. A policeman who stood before a drugstore 2 doors away left and walked down the street. 5 blocks Sophie traveled and made up his mind to try again. This time, the opportunity presented what he termed to himself a cinch. A young woman of modest and pleasing guise was standing before a show window, gazing with sprightly interest at this display of shaving mugs and inkstands. And 2 yards from the window, a large policeman of severe expression leaned against the water plug. The refined and elegant appearance of his victim and the conscientious cop encouraged him to believe that he would soon feel the pleasant cop's hand upon his arm that would ensure his winter quarters on the island. Sophie straightened the lady missionary's ready-made tie and approached the young lady. He made eyes at her, cleared his throat, smiled, smirked,
and made impudent and contemptible remarks of the measure.
With half an eye, Sophie saw that the policeman was watching him fixedly. The young woman moved away a few steps and again bestowed her absorbed attention upon the shaving mugs. Sophie followed, boldly stepping to her side, raised his hat and said,
"Oh there, Bedelia, don't you want to come and play with me?"
The policeman was still looking. The persecuted young woman had only to beckon a finger, and Sophie would be practically on his way to his insular haven. Already he imagined he could feel the cozy warmth of the station house. The young woman faced him and, stretching out her hands, caught Sophie's coat sleeve. "Sure, Mike," she said joyfully. "If you blow me to a few drinks, I'd have spoken to you sooner, but the cop was watching." With the young woman playing the clinging ivy to his oak, Sophie walked past the policeman, overcome with gloom. He seemed doomed to liberty. At the next corner, he shook off his companion and ran. He halted in a district where by night are found the lightest streets. Women in furs and men in greatcoats moved gaily in the wintry air. A sudden fear seized Sophie that some dreadful enchantment had rendered him immune to arrest. The thought brought him a little of panic when he came upon another policeman lounging grandly in front of a theater. He caught at the immediate stroke of disorderly conduct. On a sidewalk, Sophie began to yell drunken gibberish at the top of his harsh voice. He danced, howled, and raved. The policeman toward his club turned his back to Sophie and remarked to a citizen, "He must be one of the Yale boys, celebrating their victory over the Hartford College. Noise, but no harm. With instructions to leave them be." Disconsolate, Sophie seized his unavailing racket.
Would never a policeman lay hands on him?
In his French, the island seemed an unattainable Arcadia. He buttoned his thin coat against the chilling wind. In a cigar store, he saw a well-dressed man lighting a cigar at a swinging light. His silk umbrella he had set by the door on entering. Sophie stepped inside, secured the umbrella, and sauntered off with it slowly. The man at the cigar light followed hastily. "My umbrella," he said sternly. "Oh, is it?" sneered Sophie, adding insult to petty larceny. "Well, why don't you call a policeman? I took it, your umbrella. Why don't you call a cop? There stands one on the corner." The umbrella owner slowed his steps. Sophie did likewise, with a presentiment that luck would again run against him. The policeman looked at the two curiously.
Of course, said the umbrella man.
"That is, well, you know how these mistakes occur. If it's your umbrella, I hope you will excuse me. I picked it up this morning in a restaurant. If you recognize it as yours, I hope you will." "Of course it's mine," said Sophie viciously. The ex-umbrella owner retreated. The policeman hurried to assist a tall blonde across the street. Sophie walked eastward through a street damaged by improvements. At length, Sophie reached one of the avenues to the east, where the glitter and turmoil was but faint. He set his face down this toward Madison Square, for the homing instinct survives, even though the home is a park bench. But on an unusually quiet corner, Sophie came to a standstill. Here was an old church, quaint and gabled. Through one violet-stained window, a soft light glowed, where, no doubt, an organist was making music to practice for the coming Sunday anthem. There drifted out to Sophie's ears sweet music that caught and held him transfixed against the iron fence. The moon was above, lustrous and serene. Vehicles and pedestrians were few. Sparrows twittered sleepily in the eaves. For a little while, the scene might have been a country churchyard, and the anthem that the organist played cemented Sophie to the iron fence, for he had known it well in the days when his life contained such things as mothers and roses, and ambitions and friends, and immaculate thoughts and colors. The conjunction of Sophie's receptive state of mind and the influences about the old church led to a sudden and wonderful change in his soul. He viewed with swift horror the pit into which he had tumbled, the degraded days, unworthy desires, dead hopes, wrecked faculties, and base motives that made up his existence. And also in a moment, his heart responded thrillingly to this noble move. An instantaneous and strong impulse moved him to battle with his desperate fate. He would put himself out of the mire. He would make a man of himself again. He would conquer the evil that had taken possession of him. There was time. He was comparatively young yet. He would resurrect his old eager ambitions and pursue them without faltering. Those solemn but sweet organ notes had set up a revolution in him. Tomorrow he would go into the roaring downtown district and find work. A fur importer had once offered him a place as driver. He would find him tomorrow and ask for the position. He would be somebody in the world, he would. Sophie felt a hand laid on his arm. He looked quickly around into the broad face of a policeman. "What are you doing here?" asked the officer. "Nothing," said Sophie. "Then come along," says the policeman. 3 months on the island, says the judge in the police court the next morning.